And I'd like to introduce our speaker, Deb. Deb has a very long history with this group. She hasn't been a member for a few years because she retired and she's been traveling around and doing all kinds of fun things. But she is probably one of the founders, would you say, of the group?
Oh no, I came in a little later than that, but I was
a little later than that.
I was in the Alliance for a long time and also on the foundation board.
And
back when there were two.
She was a regular public affairs member back when it was being run by somebody else. And she has come back every year to do this presentation on League of Women Voters ballot explanation, I guess is the best way to call it. So we're grateful to have her. She does a wonderful job, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Okay. Well, I'm going to primarily talk about the 11 statewide ballot measures. If time permits, which hopefully it will at the end, we can dive in a little bit into the Denver one. But the Denver ballot is very long as well, so I don't think we're going to get to everything, but we can talk about a couple of those maybe. So I am going to screen share. And can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, what do I need to do here?
Probably
you know what? Carrie has not given us the ability to screen share.
Oh, that could be an issue.
You should be able to, hey, Sue, you should be able to assign her that permission since you're the host. So if you go under participant, if you go under
actually it does say one participant can share at a time.
Okay, so
Share,
I've got it open, and what do I need to do beyond that?
So click on share screen. It's the green up arrow at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, which I did do. I did share screen. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
That's what I did. I'm still not an expert, as you can tell.
Yeah, that's okay. We got it.
You got it now, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my husband is printing something. I apologize. So I'm going to run really quickly through the beginning of this, talking about what kind of ballot measures there are in the background, and so I can delve right into the individual ballot measures. But just to give you a little bit of background, can you hear me, by the way?
Yep, you're doing great.
Okay, so there's two kinds of ways that things get on the ballot. Either the legislature proposes and sends it to the voters, and that's called a referendum, or a citizen group who's interested in an issue goes out and gathers a whole lot of signatures. This year it's 124,632. Because it's based on 5% of the last Secretary of State election total, and you can get ballot measures on that way. And then similarly, after you're on the ballot, it can either be an amendment or a proposition. An amendment is a change to the Constitution. Therefore, everything's a higher threshold. So 2/3 vote of both houses of the General Assembly, if the General Assembly is sending it to the voters, or that same ballot, same petition process, not any different amount of petition signatures. And then notably, two things: only voters can change the Constitution, and it requires a 55% vote, more than the majority vote required to change statutes. Propositions, which is a change to the statutes, only requires a majority vote referral from the General Assembly. The same citizen process can also do it. And after that is in place, the legislature, if they discover that there's some kind of a problem or a glitch that wasn't anticipated, can change it. This year, we've got 3 amendments. They are all referrals from the legislature and 8 propositions. 2 of those are from the legislature, and 6 of them are from citizens. So let's hit the first one, which is Amendment D. I don't know how many of you are in Arapahoe or Douglas County. I might be the only one, but in 2020, the legislature divided the 18th Judicial District, which is my judicial district down here in Arapahoe County, but also covers Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties right now, divided us into 2 judicial districts. And that's because we have 1 million voters in our district, and we're only one of 22 judicial districts. So you can see that the population growth here got a little out of hand and made us have way too many people, and therefore way too many court cases. So the whole thing is supposed to happen on January 1st, 2025. So we're in the ramp up to that of facilitating that change. Arapahoe County will be all by itself in the 18th, and Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties will go into the 23rd Judicial District. So what Amendment D does is somehow we have to get some of the judges from the 18th to the 23rd so they can do business as of the first day that they're in operation, which is the January 2nd or 3rd, 2025. So this, and just a little bit of background, a number of you probably know that the way that we get judges right now is that they're referred to a nominating committee that screens all the applicants. They interview them all, and they send a slate of 3 that they think are the best ones to the governor. And the governor picks from that slate of 3 recommendations from the nomination committee. And so judges are appointed. But then on a cycle that depends on which level of court they're on, they have to win a retention election. And that, by the way, you probably all know this, but at the back of well, some of the people who might be new to the state, at the back of your blue book that you should have gotten from the state already, and most of the libraries have them if you, for some reason, didn't get yours, so you can probably pick up a copy there. That's where the judge information is, and it also gives it tells you, what lawyers appearing before the judge say. That they take this whole survey of the people who appear before the judge, and then also non-lawyers, and they talk about any problems there are, and then they say whether they are recommended for retention, and then you get to vote on it. So we have all these judges sitting in the 18th Judicial District. We need to populate the judges for the new one. So the governor is being given authority in this amendment to go ahead and move some of them to the 23rd, and those will be the ones who are already working in Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties, already managing a caseload in those courthouses. The main courthouse is in Arapahoe County, but they each have their own courthouse as well. And so this is just to have a smooth process so that we suddenly don't have a trial that doesn't have a judge on January 2nd or 3rd. So that is Amendment D. And by the way, if somebody has a burning question, hop in, but otherwise maybe we could wait till the end just so we make sure we get through all 11 of these. But definitely if you have a burning question, somehow let me know, because I can't even see all of you on the side here, unfortunately. So maybe Sue or somebody can tell me if somebody has a question. So Amendment E is another one referred by the legislature. And you probably know about the property, the homestead tax exemption for seniors who are age 65 or more and have lived in their house for 10 years and get half of the first $200,000 of actual value of your property tax exempt if you apply for that as a senior. And then it was also extended previously to veterans with permanent service-related disabilities. So this is just an effort to add a very small additional group of the Gold Star spouses, meaning that their husband either died in the line of duty or from a service-related disease or injury. So that's only 490 surviving spouses who would be added to have eligibility for this, where we already have 266,000 people who are 65 or older who are getting it, and 9,000 veterans. So it's a in terms of the impact of how much the state would spend, it's very small. And part of the thinking here is that if your spouse has a permanent service-related disability, you're already getting it. So isn't that equal, if not more, deserving for a widow of someone killed in the line of duty or who died from service-related injuries? So that would extend this extra the tax exemption. That unfortunately is getting to be a little smaller with the tax values going up and up and up on houses. It used to be more of a burden lifting, but it's still some burden lifting. So anything is better than nothing, of course. Okay, so going on to Amendment F. Again, this is our third amendment, and it is also referred from the legislature, and it is to reduce the number of years you have to be in existence as a charity to obtain a bingo raffle license from 5 years to 3 years. And then it allows the legislature to, in 2025, to see if this new reduction is working correctly or if they want to adjust it again. And it allows you to pay a member of your organization who is managing or these games minimum wage up to the middle of 2024, and then after that, whatever the organization and the person agree upon. And this is basically to recognize that this is a way that a lot of nonprofits raise money at fundraising events, and to try to bring it a little bit more into a current workable situation. Okay, Proposition FF, Healthy Meals for All. You may have heard of this one already. This is one that really is reacting to the issue of lunch shaming, where some kids don't have any money to buy a lunch and some kids do. And I've had a number of teachers say that that everybody knows who the kids are that don't have the money to buy a lunch. And there is lunch shaming going on. And then you've all heard horrible stories of where somebody was denied a lunch in a fairly flamboyant way by a worker in the cafeteria when their parent hadn't paid. I don't know that we've had too many of those stories in Colorado, but there were some from other parts of the country. So this would create a program that provides free, healthy breakfast and lunches to all public school students, as well as ones who are there for the early education programs that are administered in the schools. It requires the schools to participate in the National School Meals Program in order for these free meals to be provided by the state, because the state wants the feds to share the cost, and that funding is available. And I can't imagine any school not being willing to take advantage of it, but because you would get both federal funding and state funding that would cover this. And how the state is going to pay for this by taxing households who owe more than $300,000 annually in income, have more than $300,000 annually in income. And then it's going to also tap those federal funds to bring down that cost to the state. And the way that they're going to do it for that, how they're going to reach into the pockets of those households that earn $300,000 or more is to limit the state income tax deductions to $12,000 for single filers and $16,000 for joint filers. And this would affect, believe it or not, about 5% of the return. So we have a lot of affluent households in Colorado. And then they also would, of course, have to tap those federal funds to be eligible to do this. One factoid is that this, of course, follows on COVID, where they made school lunches for the first time free for all the students for 2 years because of the unique situations we're dealing with in COVID. And so this is an effort to react to the very severe need. And if we were not doing it for everybody, actually 40% of all these students would qualify based on the income levels of their family, which is kind of a very, very high number. I was surprised it was that high. Okay, so GG is the first, the second of our propositions. I should have pointed out that FF was the first proposition, which means it is amending statute, not the Constitution, and this is the second one. And this is to add tax tables to petitions and ballots. And I will show you an example, and then you can look on page 33 of your blue book and see it for yourself. But it will be a tax table that goes by income level, like 15,000 or less, and then at every income level up from there to tell you how many taxpayers are in that income level, the total change in taxes owed that this proposition would create, either more taxes or less taxes, and then per taxpayer in that who makes that much, how much would this affect your tax burden? And so it's an effort to give more information. Now, obviously, since I'm holding this chart up, it's already in the blue book. But the proponents of this, when this is a citizen initiative, want this to go onto your petition when you sign it, and to be on your ballot as well. So this is obviously going to create longer ballots, but the proponent, and that would be one of the points that has been raised by those who are opposed to this one, but the proponents of this feel that the additional information right there looking at you in an easier, a more likely way that you'd see it would be helpful to help you decide if you want to vote for it.
Hey, Deb.
Yes.
Sorry,
Do you have a question?
I'm breaking in because one of our folks said that they haven't gotten their blue book yet. Can you tell us where we can get one if we haven't?
Yes, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, most of the libraries have a pile of them sitting around somewhere in the library. But if you have a library you're going to go to, I'd probably call them first just to see if they have them. But that is one way to get them. League of Women Voters doesn't give them out because we have our own guide that I attached for you. Well, I attached to you our guide, which is kind of the Reader's Digest version of it. And you can, and I did send that to Sue. Sue, did you share what I sent you with everybody?
Yes, we did. And if somebody on this call didn't get it, let me know. But I think it got shared twice. I think I shared it and then Carrie shared it. So
okay. So what I sent to you was the statewide ballot guide, and then I also sent you one that the Denver League prepared for the Denver ballot measures. But yeah, I saw a big stack at my library, at Coble Library down here. So I would go check out your closest library and see if you can get it there. I don't, and otherwise I would call up the Secretary of State's office and see what other method there is to get your copy, because they are the ones who distribute it. Okay. Goes here. So Proposition 121 is our first one from the voters, the first voter proposition. And well, this one, if this one looks a little bit familiar to you, a couple years ago, that's because it is. This is the second effort by the Independence Institute and John Caldera it's a second bite at the apple of lowering our income taxes. So they put a measure on in 2019 to lower our income tax rate from 4.63 to 4.55. And that was passed by the voters. So now they're coming back for a second reduction in our income tax rate from 4.55% to 4.4%. And this would amend statutes. It would permanently reduce both the individual and corporate income tax rate unless the legislature tried to do something. But as you know, the legislature, or as many of you know if you're not new to the state, the legislature can't raise taxes on their own. They would have to, if the legislature sees that they're in dire straits after this, they would have to get the voters to approve any increase back up in the income tax rate. And now just a further review, it seems like forever we had a 5% flat tax rate. And then in 1998, that was changed to 4.75. A year later, it was changed again to 4.63%. And that stayed that way for almost 20 years until the first effort by the Independence Institute to reduce our rate to 4.55%, where we sit right now. And looking at a couple of the big numbers on this one, this would reduce our state tax collection about $412.6 million in fiscal year 23-24. That would be a 2% reduction in our general fund budget. And as some of you know, if you've gone to any of these fiscal presentations, a whole lot of our budget is mandatory spending that can't be touched. And so the same things get on the chopping block whenever we have a need to reduce spending because of either less money coming in or some other issue. So here it would be education, corrections, and human services that would take the brunt of any shortfall that is created by this reduction in the amount of tax we're collecting. And in years where we're due a TABOR refund, this will come out of the TABOR refund. In other years, it would reduce what is available to spend in the budget. And by the way, the state is still expecting TABOR, is still projecting we're going to have TABOR refunds through the 23-24 tax year. You know, obviously with the looming possibility of a recession, that could change. Okay, Proposition 122 is our next proposition. Also, you'll not be surprised to hear that the magic mushroom proposition was not referred from the legislature, but it is a citizen initiative. And although it sounds like a somewhat humorous subject, it's actually fairly serious. It would allow access, and in Denver, as many of you know who live in Denver, has already in a prior ballot decriminalized the possession of magic mushrooms. So this would allow regulated access to natural psychedelic medicines, which are also called psychedelic mushrooms, and which are also called magic mushrooms, sort of interchangeably, for adults 21 and older that show promise in treating mental health conditions, and allow the use of those psychedelic mushrooms only at licensed facilities. It would create a regulated therapy system so adults could access natural psychedelic therapy in licensed healing centers. Whoop, I went too far ahead. There we go. It would also remove criminal penalties for personal use and possession, and prohibit the sale for recreational use. So it would be a regulated process and would be focused on medicinal uses. A little bit of background that, as you may know, that like marijuana, magic mushrooms are currently classified as on the federal level as a Schedule I controlled substance. That means that it, quote, has no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. However, there's a growing body of research from some fairly esteemed institutions that show natural medicines combined with psychotherapy can effectively treat many mental health conditions such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and addiction. And this is so notable that FDA has designated psychedelic mushrooms as a breakthrough therapy for depression. So they are seeing some promise there, but they have not approved it as, and they haven't taken it off that list of, of a Schedule 1 controlled substance. But they are inching towards that, but they haven't done it. So those in favor say that veterans with PTSD and those with terminal illnesses find that these therapies work when others don't, and that they have put a number of guardrails in place so that problems don't occur otherwise. And those opposed say, hey, we're getting out over our skis. The FDA hasn't approved this yet. Just wait till they do their work and approve it. Oh, by the way, the effect of the FDA designating this as a breakthrough therapy means that the research can be sped up, that they have more rights to do research into the medicinal benefits of magic mushrooms. And you probably know that's a big issue with marijuana as well, is that when it stays at that as a Schedule 1 controlled substance, it's very hard to get approval to do research. And so you kind of just stay in a state of inertia of not being able to show what the effects of something are. So that is Proposition 122. 123 is the affordable housing proposition. Citizen initiative, of course, to change the statute. This would dedicate 1%, 1/10 of 1%, pardon me, from existing income tax revenues for affordable housing. And it would de-Bruce that money. And for those of you who are new to the state, that means exempt that money from the state's revenue limits. Right now, under our Taxpayer Bill of Rights, we have revenue limits. And otherwise, if we hit that limit, and it's all a very complicated formula, we have to send money back to the voters, to the residents of the state, I should say. And in this case, it would say, we're going to take that money, we're going to let the state keep that money and use it for affordable housing. And then it establishes a very complicated system for how that would be used and who would regulate the use of it. And that I would refer you to pages 41 to 44 of the Blue Book. That is a very good, if you want to look into how it would be used. So to just tell you a little bit of the background, this would not increase your taxes. In TABOR refund years, it would reduce the TABOR refund. And that is at an average of the first year this hits, there'd be a 6-month effect. So they estimate $43 reduction in your TABOR refund for that 6 months. And then after that, $86 per taxpayer per year of a reduction in the TABOR refund. And so looking at that overall, that means that the TABOR refunds would be reduced by about $145 million in that first 6 months, and then $290 million in the first full fiscal year of 2023-2024. Now, you may ask, well, what happens if we're in a bad economy? You just said that, I just told you that when we reduce the money coming in, the education, the human services and corrections take the hit. Well, in this case, there's express permission for the legislature if the revenue is going to fall below the TABOR cap, and perhaps we do go into a recession, for example. The General Assembly can reallocate up to 60% of this to other needs like education or social services, et cetera, to balance the budget. I think we all know what a severe issue, problem we have in the state with affordable housing. We do already have some, and homelessness both, which would also be affected by this. that we have experienced a significant increase in the amount of our homeless population and the cost of housing, and that is only going up and up almost daily, it seems, because of course, inflation is a major factor in that at this point. Since 2021, we've had a pot of federal money that you've probably all heard about under the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, and the state took great pains over that last legislative session to allocate that money to where it is needed. And affordable housing and homelessness and mental health services and job issues were all focuses of that. But the 1.2 billion of that federal money was allocated to housing insecurity and lack of affordable and workforce housing and homelessness. But remember, those are one-time funds that have to be allocated by a certain date and actually spent by a couple years later. And this proposition is intended to create a sustainable source of funding going on from there when the ARPA funding is going to go away. And to actually, in combination with existing affordable housing funding, create 10,000 units a year. So allow development of about 10,000 units of affordable housing annually, and adding up to 170,000 units by 2040. And that right now is the projected affordability gap in our state. So they are trying to close that affordability gap. All of this, of course, is projection, so we don't know exactly how any of those numbers will absolutely work out. So that is Proposition 123. Now we have three propositions that I'm sure you've been seeing ads on TV about. The liquor propositions. We have 3 out of 11 of our propositions relate to alcohol. How about that? So the first proposition I call the Total Wine wants to have as many locations as King Soopers, Safeway, Costco, etc. proposition. Because basically it is there in prior changes to the liquor laws, and there have been quite a few over the past number of years. Liquor licensed drugstores, which is the term for grocery stores that have a pharmacy and also sell beer, wine, and spirits, they can currently have 8 liquor licenses. So 8 of their stores can sell these products. And that number increases every 5 years until January 2037, when the limit goes away totally. And they can have an unlimited number of licenses. Compared to that, retail liquor stores only can have 3 licenses, only 3 stores, and only 3 locations, and 1 more in 2027. So what this ballot measure that is being pushed by Total Wine, and I'm sure by some other chains, is wanting to basically have parity with the liquor licensed drugstores such as Costco, Safeway, and King Soopers. This measure does not apply to any grocery or convenience stores that sell only beer. And by the way, they already have an unlimited number of locations. So if they only sell beer, they can do it in all their stores. And that would include things like 7-Eleven and other grocery stores. So that is the first of the citizen proposed changes to our statutes. The second one is to allow groceries and convenience stores to sell wine. So it would create a new fermented malt beverage and wine retail license. If you are like me and don't know what a fermented malt beverage is, that means, well, beer is the major type, but also hard seltzer and hard lemonade are fermented malt beverages. So it would allow the grocery and convenience stores that would not be helped by the prior ballot measure to sell both beer and wine, basically. That is the main effort, a new fermented malt beverage and wine retail license to allow them to sell beer and to sell wine and conduct wine tastings. So everybody is jockeying to make sure that they do not lose the cheer on these first two ballot measures. And you would not be surprised to hear that the primary opposition to both of these 124 and 125 is from the small liquor stores who don't want to have multiple locations or can't or don't feel they have the wherewithal to have multiple locations. So they are very opposed to both 124 and 125. 126 is about third-party delivery of alcoholic beverages. I'm sure you're aware that already under current law you can deliver alcohol to customers using your own. I don't know if you're aware of the fact that you only can use your own employees age 21 or older. Liquor stores have been able to do that since 1994, wineries since 1997, and grocery and convenience stores since 2019. And the most recent addition was bars and restaurants, and that came in during COVID in 2020. And all of those businesses currently have to use their own employees. So this would propose that you can use third-party independent contractors or delivery services. And then those services would have all the requirements on them that the people who work for them have to be that are making these deliveries have to be at least 21, complete a certification program, verify the customer's legal age, and refuse delivery if the customer does not provide proof of that age or appears intoxicated. And currently, all of that obligation was on the business itself. And that would be the change here. And then the other thing that this proposition is doing is to allow the permanent takeout and delivery of alcohol from bars and restaurants, something that had been approved during COVID, but was scheduled for going away in 2025. And this would make that permanent. Because that I believe that those businesses have found that it has become a very lucrative part of their business. And obviously restaurants and bars have been having a very hard time staying in business, and a lot of them have been closing. So just a couple words at the end of this one, and then we can spend a couple minutes on Denver. I don't think too many, if anybody here hasn't already registered to vote because maybe you're new to the state, you can do that, go to colorado.gov. And I'm sure you're all of and as long as you've been a Colorado resident for 22 days, I'm sure we're all of the requisite age limit, and none of us are currently serving a sentence of confinement, or else we wouldn't be on the call. So you would be eligible, and you can actually go to a voter service and polling center right up to election day if you go in person and register to vote that very day right before you vote. So those voter service and polling centers in every county will be opening on October 24th. They stay open right through election day. And so that's one way. Some people just love to vote in person, so that's how you can do that. Most of us, we all will receive a mail ballot, and that's why it's really important to get your voter. If you want to get your mail ballot, you want to get your voter registration changed ASAP, because they mail the ballots out on Monday the 17th, which is coming right up. So if anybody is either moved and not at the right address, and the state doesn't have your current address to mail you the ballot, or else you're new to the state, you want to go ahead and register or get your correct address registered right away. And you can do that again on govotecolorado.gov. And most of the counties also have their similar site. It's arapahovotes.gov. I assume the Denver has a very similar one, I'm sure. So it's very easy to do it all online. And then the key thing here is, I'm sure most of you know, is that the ballot has to be received by November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th at 7 p.m. that means includes dropping it in the drop box by then, but it does not include putting it in the mail and not getting there by then. Just because it's postmarked by then, it won't be counted unless it's already been received by then. You don't want to do that long ballot and not have it count. And I certainly don't. So that is, unless somebody has a question where we want to refer to one of these slides, I'll stop screen sharing so we can talk about Denver. Okay, so I'm gonna, let's see, what do I do? Oh, stop share. Yep, there we go. Okay, so are most of you in Denver? So you're all going to be voting on those on your long list of Denver ballot measures. What I did attach and Sue sent to you what Denver League has put together to go through each of these ballot measures. They actually have the actual text of the ballot measure, then they have a little description of it, and then they have the pros and cons. And when I looked through it, I noticed that on quite a few of those there were no known proponents or opponents. So there's not a whole lot of, but a few of them have very robust discussions of pros and cons. The first three seem to be, the first one is for a millage increase for the libraries. That is the first ballot measure. And that is to maintain current services and expand services. And apparently they asked for money in the prior cycle to build 2 new locations. So that would be the one issue that might be a problem for them this time of going to the voters so often. But they do amazing work, obviously. And then we have 2 debrucing measures. For the new people, again, that is where you under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, if you hit certain thresholds, all a very complicated formula, you have to give money back to the voters rather than keep it to use for government purposes. And when you debruce, you say to that government, okay, it's okay with us if you keep all the money. And a lot of local governments have succeeded in going to the voters and debrucing just in general so that they never have to give money back to the voters. The state has had a much harder slog with that. And somebody once described that to me as that you can see and feel what's happening at the local level as a voter a lot more concretely, and it's a little harder to tangibly appreciate what's happening at the state level, and that might explain why they've had a harder time getting voters to approve it. But so you've got 2 in Denver. One is on the climate tax that was approved in the last election. So it apparently raised more money than was expected and would, under the Tabor formula, have to be given, 1.3 million would have to be given back to the voters, and it's saying, go ahead and keep it. And then similarly, the homeless resolution tax that was passed in the last election, a similar amount of extra money was raised, 1.3 million. And that's again saying, go ahead and we want you to have that money for homelessness. That's why we passed the ballot measure. You can keep any money that comes in, and this will be going forward as well. So those 3 are all letting in the case of the library, authorizing a little more money to the library system, the Denver Public Libraries, and the next 2 debrucing. The fourth one is kind of a modernization procedure for access to the ballot that is pretty, that you can probably want to read through yourself. The 5th one is one that is a little contentious, and that is the no eviction without representation. And that is to assess a fee to landlords per unit of housing. And this is initiated ordinance 305, no eviction without representation. And of $75 per unit, and that would increase each year with the consumer price index. And then that money assessed on each unit would go into a pot, and it would allow legal representation for renters and when they are being evicted. So that is one that has, you know, a lot of strong support, and the landlords are pushing against it in part because they've just come through COVID, haven't been able to pay their mortgages. That there's really a lot of financial hardship on both sides right now on this one. And I'm not even speaking of this ballot. I mean, the background is that we've just come through COVID, and we've had moratoriums on being able to evict people, and the landlord still has to pay their mortgage. So that, you know, there is true hardship on both sides. It's no fun to be evicted either. So that's the background that this is being put in on. So the opposition would be that this is piling on landlords once again. The proponents would say, well, we have to do something for only 2% typically of renters have legal representation in an eviction proceeding, and that is tough. I mean, it is tough to represent yourself adequately in one of these proceedings. So that is the no eviction without representation. Then we have the 306 is waste no more, and this is all about recycling services and multifamily residential premises being required to offer them. And it apparently comes on top of a prior ballot measure that would relate to single family homes. Are all of you familiar with that one? Because I'm less familiar with it. But do you all have a requirement in your single family homes to have a recycle at this point? Is anybody maybe
we're given recycle bins without asking for them, but compost you have to ask for.
Right. So it doesn't cover compost, it sounds like, but
Compost, you have to pay extra. I don't think there's any requirement to use your recycle bin. Like there's no penalty for throwing recycling in your trash.
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But maybe Michelle, it's a requirement that the city gives us recycling. Like they have to make it available.
Well, yeah, now though they're going to be charging for everything. I mean, they sent out a message, I don't know, a month ago or so about changing. They're going to charge based on the size of the bins that you have, and the city will give you the appropriate size bin, and you would pay a fee that would include everything: trash, composting, and recycling, based on the size of the bin. So, yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And there are a lot of people that I'm hearing are very cranky about it. We never had to pay for trash pickup before, and now we have to pay for it because it's going to be mandatory for everybody to pay that minimum trash pickup fee. So
yeah, they're trying to encourage more people to recycle because our recycling rate is very low.
Yeah, I saw the numbers were kind of shocking. You know, I'd expect that in certain other places, but Denver, I really expected it to be a lot higher. So that's interesting. So this apparently what you already passed is called the pay as you throw model, which is somewhat humorous. And what you're voting on this time would require apartment and condo buildings to offer recycling and or composting services to residents. And then also non-residential buildings that contribute to the food waste stream, like restaurants and sports arenas, would also be required to offer those services. And that might mean just have the different bins available, you know, for people to throw their stuff into the proper bin after they eat it. And it would even affect food trucks. Food trucks and special events would also be subject to new composting and recycling rules. The construction and demolition industry would be required to recycle salvageable materials and submit recycling and reuse plans. So this is a pretty broad group of people and institutions that would be covered by this 306.
And Deb, did you say, is that a citizen initiative or a city council?
An initiated ordinance, which means citizen initiative, yes. Yeah. All the first ones were all referred, I assume, by the city council. Then starting with the no eviction without representation, these are citizen ordinances, initiative ordinances. So the waste no more is the second. Then the third one is the one that you probably all have heard about, and you even may have an opinion, and that's the sidewalk one. Denver deserves sidewalks. And that is an annual fee program where property owners would pay a fee by the foot, depending on the type of sidewalk in their neighborhood. The fees would fund a citywide sidewalk program and take the responsibility for repairs out of the property owner's hands. People who live in multifamily buildings would not have any obligation to pay anything. Also people who just had repaired, who had spent a fortune repairing their sidewalks, because I heard one of these stories, heart-tugging stories by somebody who had just done this beautiful job repairing at thousands of dollars their sidewalk, and they would get no credit for that whatsoever, and they would still have to pay the fee. And that person happened to be on a corner with a whole lot of footage. So so I'm sure that will be the flashpoint on this one, that there is that people in multifamily units will not pay anything, even though they certainly use the sidewalks, and some houses will pay a very, very large amount. So this one is, if I were a Denver voter, I'd have a tricky time with deciding what I wanted to do on this one. But that, I think we're almost done. But if you want to know, I can very briefly tell you the league. We try to do this always on a very nonpartisan, and just telling you what the people who have support and oppose it feel. But I at the very end, I am allowed to tell you the league positions on the state and city ones. The league only takes positions when we actually have studied an issue. So on the state ballot measures, we have no position on most of them, but we support both the meals for students measure FF, and GG to add the tax tables to your ballot and your petition. And we oppose the reduction in income taxes in 121. And we support the affordable housing one, 123. Everything else we have no position on. Did I say that too quickly? If anybody want it, does anybody want me to go over that? And in Denver, let me find this. No, here we go. Basically, the league supports all of them, except they neither support or oppose the eviction without representation measure. They say that the league doesn't have a stated position on the right to legal representation, and that there were questions about the process of implementing the ordinance, that they have some concerns about how this ordinance would be implemented. So does anybody want to talk about, I know we're at 9 o'clock, but is there anybody want to talk about any of this? Because I can stay as long as you want to stay.
Yeah, I'm not rushing anybody off the call. If you guys have questions, feel free.
Yeah, I'm just glad I got through it all by 9 o'clock. That's it can be a hard job.
We're glad you got through it all also. I think you were pretty thorough. I mean, there was a lot there, and we got a lot of food for thought. That's my opinion on this anyway. But does anybody have any questions? Or
Well, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment regarding the trash and the compost and all that. I participated in the composting program when we had our house. And after doing that, between recycling and composting, there were some weeks when I had no trash. And the other weeks in my giant garbage can, I would have one Target shopping bag of garbage.
That is such a good point, and I have exactly the same results. After recycling, our trash container, except when we're like doing yard waste, is pretty empty. So that is a great benefit of it.
well, and I think that's why they're going to the different size trash cans instead of giving us the giant trash can automatically. I think because of that, because then people are finding that, you know, if they do the composting and the recycling, that what's in their actual trash can is less. We don't do composting, but we still don't have very much in our trash can every week. It's probably double the size of what we need. We did get an extra recycling bin, however, because we tend to have a lot of recyclables. So we never did the composting because I didn't really feel like paying for it. And I was thinking about getting my own composter and just composting at home and using it here. But I don't know, with the new system, probably we'll just go ahead and try having it done through the city.
And is that the city actually picks up your composting and then does the composting off-site?
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
That's great.
And I think you can put a lot more in it because it's an industrial composting. So things you could not compost at home, like food containers and things that are technically compostable, the city can handle.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's nice because you can put your yard waste in it too, not just your kitchen or, you know, inside the house compostables.
Ooh, that's a real benefit.
Yeah. You know, I think it's great that they're adding it for multi-unit buildings.
Yeah, I was always surprised. My brother-in-law lived in a Denver apartment complex and he kept saying, I said, why aren't you recycling this? We don't have recycling here. I'm like, what? It was a huge complex and it just made no sense to me that they didn't have just a separate, you know, disposal container for recyclables. So
I guess that may explain the very low rate of recycling in Denver.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I live in a multi-unit building. We have 2 dumpsters for recycling. But when we moved in here, I got the composting started with a company called Scraps. They come by on their bicycles and they pick it up, but we have to pay substantially more for that on a monthly basis than we did with the city.
Ah,
And people,
that's a big change. Yeah.
and people in the building said they don't want to pay for it. So once the city ordinance passes, then I think there'd be a lot more.
Yeah.
What the League of Women Voters doesn't have any opinion on the mushroom thing?
We have not studied magic mushrooms. No, that's why. Typically, when we have no opinion, it's because we have not studied that issue, and it's kind of not. That is not really right within our bandwidth because we focus on social issues, you know, climate, voting primarily, of course, given our name. But you know, there's a lot of things that we just don't study because we, you know, it's not a critical issue to our what we do as an organization.
yeah, I mean, I can tell you, Michelle, that there are a lot of psychologists that are and psychiatrists that are very much in favor. And there are a lot of patients who have said, you know, who have used it in therapy, who feel that it has really helped significantly. And the issue with waiting for the FDA to approve it is that the FDA takes years and years and years. And so I think people want to put it through because there's enough anecdotal evidence to support it that
Yeah, I'm aware of all that and I'm totally on board with it. Then the anti-group that I've heard on this issue is that it's setting it up for big business to control the market.
that was the argument they gave for marijuana too, which has pretty
interestingly
much happened.
Yeah.
Well, and I will tell you too, don't believe this bull about, oh, it'll be so regulated, because having a kid who became a pothead at 15, you can say all you want, 21 and therapeutic and whatever, but as soon as that gate is open, kids are going to be doing it. So
No, I mean, it was so easy when medical marijuana came through. It was so easy for people to get doctor, you know, prescriptions. You know, even if they were underage, they were getting them. So I hear you, Christy. It is always a double-edged sword. And
I mean, like once it's out, it's everywhere.
And it never occurred to me, you know, frankly, when I voted for, you know, for medical marijuana, that suddenly there would be medical marijuana places all over, I was thinking it would be more like a pharmacy kind of thing. I didn't realize what was actually going to happen. And then the fact that they were allowed to use signs that indicated that it was medical, like you have a young impressionable kid, oh, it's medical, it must be good, and that irked me a little bit too, because then you had to just explain to your kid that, well, yes and no, there are situations in which it is helpful for people, and it has some real applied uses, but it's not like you're taking vitamins. It's not that kind of healthy. It's not that kind of medical. It's
Right.
it's for people who really need it. So
There-
yeah, I don't
I
know.
just wanted to add one thing. There's a big difference between where you can use magic mushrooms and where you can use marijuana. You can't use it at your house.
Right.
You have to go to one of those regulated licensed facilities to use it. So that should, you would think, blunt a little bit of the concern that Christy has, although I'm sure where there's a will, there's a way.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. But
All I
that
can say is
that's a
I'm
big difference
very
between-
excited to soon have magic mushrooms in my house, along with all of the vaping of the weed, which it's just like, it's tough. I mean, it's been a long battle, and
Yep.
it just doesn't end.
Well, the other thing is too, it's not a commercial market. They're not selling it.
Yet.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. My feeling is though that when people want to get stuff, even if it's illegal, there haven't been a whole lot of means to stop them from getting it. So I don't know. I'm on the fence, Christy, just so you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not 100%.
No, I mean, I
sure.
voted for marijuana, and I'll vote yes for this. I don't think it should be a class 1 felony or whatever to have mushrooms. Like, I don't believe in the mass incarceration of people for mushrooms.
Right.
I'm just saying, I think all of us, now that we live in a city that smells like weed all of the freaking time, nobody realized, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live in skunk land when we voted for medical marijuana. And now we know what the unintended consequences are. I don't think we can like pretend that mushrooms would be any different.
Yeah. And Denver already has an ordinance that decriminalized magic mushrooms. And I'm not totally familiar with the Denver one, but can you use them in your home? I believe. Is that right?
I think in Denver, it's
Yeah.
decriminalized. It's not legal. It's just decriminalized in Denver. So I think if you have a small quantity and you're using it at home, I don't think you're prohibited. I mean, nobody's going to arrest you for that, but it's.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the exact way that your current ordinance works.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is that they can't arrest you for small quantities in the confines of your home, but you can't bring it anywhere with you, I don't think. I think it has to be either in your home or in a psychiatric office, but not out on the street, not at a concert, not, that kind of thing.
And I did see that Beth McCann and some others said that so far there haven't been many problems in Denver with it. But they're not ready to, say it's just a great thing and there's no worries.
Right.
But that they did say that so far it's relatively smoothly been operating.
Yeah, that one has not been as noticeable as the whole medical marijuana and then the legalized marijuana. So yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for
Thanks,
your
everybody.
time. Yeah,
Thank you,
for
Deb.
your
That
time.
was fabulous.
Thank you
You
all for
did such a
listening.
great job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everybody's time and remember to vote. I'm sure you will.
I don't think any of us is going
I'm
to
sure
forget.
Anybody who's on here is going to vote, but tell everybody else to vote.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.